New Tech Times, a video magazine for the electronic age. In this edition, high-tech hype. Can new products live up to the slick ad campaigns? Also, networking, online communication is changing the way we talk to each other. Later, commentaries from viewers coping in this new age, and a story about the handicapped in the new tech workplace. All this and more in this edition of the New Tech Times.
The New Tech Times is brought to you through a grant from Wausau Insurance Companies. Times change. Wausau works.
I'm Nicholas Johnson, sometimes known around this time of year as jolly old St. Nicholas. But whether you believe in Santa Claus or not, you can't avoid the commercialism of the season. It's all around you. And when you're living through these new tech times, as we are, that means that a lot of electronics products are being pushed at you in catalogs, the stores, and television. Well, how do you deal with it? As a parent, as a consumer? Danny Goodman, Tim Onosko, and I are going to discuss some of these decisions. But first, to put it in perspective, let's take a look at some of the high-tech hype these companies are pitching your way. Here's reporter Gary Probst with our report.
Well, it's lovely being here, I must say. You know, they're all setting up their booths now, and we've got some live music coming upstairs. It's going to be a terrific convention.
It was ballyhooed as the most exciting show of its kind ever to be held in New York City. It was the Electronic Fun Expo at the Coliseum. Tens of thousands of potential customers lined up at the front door, all willing to pay $7.50 to see computers and to critique video games. They also received a healthy dose of high-tech hype.
What a show we have here today, I dare say.
It was all an example of how electronics companies are trying to make computers appear to be something they really aren't. Poetic, sexy, and human. We also see examples of people trying to humanize computers on TV. Many commercials say little about how the machine really works. Some advertising executives say the new high-tech hype is just a way to empty a consumer's pocketbook.
I think it's extremely unfortunate. I think that we're in a situation now, the industry is in a period of transition. There are always people in any industry that's new who move into the industry to make a fast buck.
Bates works for a New York ad agency, Alley & Gargano, a firm which has been taking some heat recently for its non-sexy but rather blunt commercial for Commodore computers.
This year, 2 million families will send their kids off to college. But many of these kids won't be able to compete because they lack computer skills. A home computer can help. The Commodore 64 gives you more computer for less money than anyone else. Instead of saving for your kids' education, maybe you should spend a little for it.
I don't think there's a sense of extortion, but I think it would be, anybody who's seen the commercial would realize that there is obviously an element of guilt. We believe that there's a situation with regard to selling computers where we have to demonstrate to parents, who are the likely purchasers, that kids, the likely users, are in some ways going to be hampered by not being exposed to a computer as early as possible.
But is it really good for parents to bear feelings of guilt for not buying a computer? A professor of media studies from Manhattan's Hunter College says it's a poor and self-serving way to advertise.
Commodore ad, the Texas Instrument ad where a father has a little child on his knee and is playing computer with him. Really in certain ways manipulates, and not only manipulates but falsifies very real concerns. It translates very real concerns into a purchase.
Another ad Ewan doesn't like is the Charlie Chaplin commercial for IBM. Ewan says Chaplin's likeness is used to disarm the animosity people have for computers.
To use Charlie Chaplin to sell IBM computers is tantamount to using Nat Turner to sell slavery. Charlie Chaplin sits there, all of his problems, all of his anxieties solved by the computer, and on his desk there's a computer and next to it a small vase with a rose. The computer becomes completely aestheticized. It becomes an object of beauty. It becomes a kind of poetic item rather than an item which has to do with controlling information and often controlling people.
Some advertising executives say it will be no holds barred in the 1984 promotional campaigns. Many computer and video game companies are having a tough time surviving. Coleco Industries will spend $20 million to promote their new system called Atom. But the Coleco marketing vice president says his firm will try to avoid the hard sell.
We've always been able to identify consumer needs and then develop products that relate to them. And I think that's got to be the strategy, and we can't take our eye off the ball.
At least one competitor will move in the other direction. Apple is going Hollywood.
Apple computers, which use a lot of this very flashy kind of lifestyle motif, were in fact produced by the same people who did the film Flashdance. I mean, it's no accident that if you're trying to sell a computer, the last thing you want to do is bring in people who are familiar with the technical realities and with the social realities of the computer. No, bring in the people who know how to show flesh.
Ewan says when companies fight intensively for a share in a limited market, they try to push consumers into impulse buying. They do that by making us believe that computers and video games are just a part of everyday life.
The rains may not come. The snow may not come. I mean, we're not sure what's going to be happening with the weather, but the computer will be here. And I think in a situation where the computer has become almost God, the computer has become the truth, the given within our society, when one is feeling impulsive, that is to say, one is feeling an emptiness that needs to be filled, the most ubiquitous, the most commonly seen way of filling that emptiness is to sort of join into that which is happening, and I think that's where the home computer comes in.
The advertising people disagree.
It's a very considered purchase. It isn't, it can mount up to $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for a computer used in the home. I use the word advisedly. To hard sell that sort of product has never been feasible. What all the advertising can ever do is get people to go to their dealer and ask for more information. To try and motivate people to go out and buy on the strength of advertisement would be ludicrously optimistic.
Well, don't be surprised if you catch yourself browsing in a computer store very soon. When you start to check out video games or educational programs, ask yourself, why are you there? Was it your decision to consider a computer? Or was it an idea planted in your head by somebody on Madison Avenue or in Hollywood?
As someone has said of advertising generally, even though we know we are being taken, we're still being taken. But I hope that piece may help all of us to be a little more careful in the electronic marketplace. Two fellows who keep an eye on that marketplace are Danny Goodman and Tim Onosko. And if you're a New Tech Times regular, you've already met these columnists and critics. You're probably as anxious as I am to hear what they have to say about the coming holiday season. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. One of the high-ticket items people are going to be looking at this time of year are home computers. It's a wilderness out there. What advice do you have for them, Danny?
Well, I'd recommend that people who are thinking about home computers first decide or determine that they really have a need for one. Just don't go out to buy one with some expectation that they're going to take it out of the box, set it down on a table, and it's going to do something. You know, it's an active type of family project or a personal project. You have to devote time to it and be ready for that.
What are, Tim, maybe 3 or 4 kinds of uses that people might expect to put a home computer to, and how do they differ?
I think certainly entertainment and education is going to be the primary use that a lot of people in homes are going to put computers through. Also word processing, that's electronic typing, and some record keeping and maybe some financial calculations if you have a need for that.
What difference are we talking about here in terms of price, Danny, these various levels of activity?
You have at the low end, in order to do games and education, you can get by with a computer that starts out just for the raw computer at about $200.
Now you're talking about a computer and a keyboard and maybe using your home television screen. You're not talking about discs and printers and telecommunications.
That's right. You start putting those add-ons, and you could be up to, with a printer and everything, you could be up to about $1,000, even with a $200 starting computer.
What if Tim, you wanted to do just full-blown word processing, work at home as writers, as the three of us do? What are you talking about there?
I would say to look around and shop for a business system, a CPM-based system, which is a standard operating system, or the IBM PC, or a fully blown Apple.
You mentioned IBM. You can't ignore IBM, those three big letters. And they're really moving into the home computer business. What should be our viewers' response to that? Or is it your position that everybody should buy nothing but IBM now that they're in the market? You can't very well ignore them. What are the reasons for buying equipment other than IBM?
I'd say not wait for IBM's PC Junior.
Well, let's talk about the PC for starters. If you're in the market what's that going to cost you? $3,000?
It's at least $3,000. It's overpriced by about $1,000.
So one reason you'd say not to buy IBM is because it just costs too much.
It's a very expensive machine.
Okay. Well, what do you think, Danny? Would you be concerned? What about these companies going belly up? Well, we've seen Osborne go out of business. Texas Instruments is going out of it. I'm sure our viewers are concerned that they buy into a company and suddenly it's out of business. They can't get hardware, can't get software.
Except for a few manufacturers who have both been around and have the solidity and resources to stay around for some time to come, it's always a gamble. But if you stay with brands, IBM, Apple, Commodore at the low end, maybe Radio Shack, these people will stay around and they will have support for you for years to come. But it is a question.
Tim, you have a parting word for them as they go out to the marketplace at the holiday season?
Get all the information that you can. Study it, look it over carefully, make your own decisions. Don't believe anybody and don't be persuaded by anyone.
Tim Onosko, Danny Goodman, thank you. They'll be back with us next week when we'll be taking a look at some items a little more within my budget, because I still have some shopping to do. The gifts that often mean the most, I think, are the ones that we make or represent something a little more personal than a microchip. Now, you and I haven't really quite yet made up our minds, I think, about this electronics revolution, as these brief interviews from a Madison shopping mall indicate.
I think it's great, really. Computers are a thing of today, and they're going to be a thing of tomorrow, too.
I don't believe in the video games, the computers, TV games, things such as that. We have one child who is just learning how to tell time. It's too easy to look at a digital and say it's 7:45 and rather than looking, at a normal clock. So basically that's it. I just think it's made many people lazy.
It's affected my personal life, I think, in making services easier for me, such as the computerized grocery shopping, where you're in and out much more rapidly.
Oh, well, I think anybody that doesn't get into it right now or get involved in it is going to be considered illiterate pretty soon.
I have been a paralegal all of my life, but have not had to cope with computers. And I'm just afraid that it's going to eat up the words that I put in it, and I'll never see them again.
There's a need to very much channel how our new technology is being used. It can be used for us, or again, it can be used against us.
Whatever you may think of computers, they can bring people together as well as keep them apart. Now, usually it's electronic mail between large institutions or professionals, doctors, research scientists, academics writing articles. But there are now hundreds of what are called computer bulletin boards. Thousands of ordinary people like you and me reaching out to touch someone with a telephone plugged into their home computer rather than their ear. My first experience with computer conferencing came in 1979 when President Carter selected me a presidential advisor for the White House Conference on Libraries and Information Services. Under the chairmanship of Charles Benton, the advisors met in a computer conferencing system called EYES, the Electronic Information Exchange System. Its creators and operators, Murray Turoff and Roxanne Hiltz, are two friends with whom I still communicate over their EYES system. There's enough to this subject for more than a whole show. But our managing editor, Dave Iverson, puts his reporter's hat on this week and explains why CB now means computers rather than radios.
What do we got there in that 18-wheeler, that orange one? You got yours on there, good buddy? Grab a cup of coffee and keep heading west, I hope.
Riding along the nation's highways, passing in opposite directions, and talking stranger to stranger. There is something about invisibility that contributes to conversation. But a shared highway is not the only avenue to citizen band communication. Now there's a new form of CB and a new means of travel. Today we are tied together by more than concrete.
My name is Debbie Stickles, and I go under the handle Silver.
My name is Mike Stickles, and I go under the handle Mr. Mike.
My name's Larry Tagrin, and I go under the handle Time Lord.
Bob Waller lives here in Dallas, Fort Worth. Dick is my associate in operating the system.
The handles are a little different. Not many truckers go by names like Time Lord or Nova or Hardware. But these are just semi-secret names, and like their semi-driving counterparts, there is only occasional confusion about their real identities.
I'm Roger Gibson, otherwise known as Nomad.
These new tech CBers are all enthused about the ability to talk to each other, not face-to-face, but screen-to-screen. A new kind of communication where age, sex, and appearance are all suddenly irrelevant. A kind of communication where you are what you think. Sociologist and author Roxanne Hills.
When people are communicating via this new medium, they form a different kind of relationship than they would otherwise. It's a relationship in which the impressions are built by seeing each other's minds, so to speak. They come to know what kind of thoughts the other person has, what kind of work they do, how they express themselves. It's kind of like mind-to-mind communication.
The dreaded message, access denied.
It's called networking, and it links people and their computer counterparts all across the country. One computer service called CompuServe even has a program called, fittingly, CB. Users just pay the subscription fees and an hourly charge. Then, with the help of a device called a modem, something that links computers together over telephone lines, an instant network is formed.
Where else can any one individual tie up with a person in Florida, Miami, Florida, Washington, D.C., New York City, Los Angeles, California, San Francisco, California, Houston, Texas, Austin, Texas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area for $5 an hour, now $6 an hour.
All at the same time.
Yeah, all at the same time. You can't get a conference call for that price.
It's like being able to pick up the phone and talk to, 100 people all over the country every day.
It's a wonderful thing to know that I can hit a couple of buttons on my computer at home and go in and find 4,000 people in the space interest group that share interests, almost 5,000 now.
For the networkers, computers are a kind of electronic drop-in center, an actual place you visit, a place where you can meet, talk, and sometimes find something more.
I found your wife.
Mike and Debbie Stickles met online, unheard and unseen. Two screens communicating in the dark. Mike computing from Texas, Debbie from Phoenix, Arizona.
Like when I really got to know Mike, you just glued to the computer, and it's almost like you could feel the feelings come across on the screen.
You're oblivious to anything around you. Somebody come knock at the door and you wouldn't even notice it.
Eventually, Mike and Debbie met in person, and their online romance became a one-of-a-kind marriage.
We were going to plan on just having a mock wedding on CB, and after talking with some friends, we decided to go ahead and make it for real. You just go ahead and have a real minister there, perform the ceremony, everything online on CB. Whoever was watching on CB could, see us get married at the same time without actually being here.
It was the first online computer marriage, yes.
There is more, of course, to computer networks than computer matchmaking. Roxanne Hills and Murray Turoff are two early networking pioneers. They believe that this new form of communication will also give working together a brand new meaning.
This is really an exciting way to work in that you can bring in people in many different disciplines who have different perspectives and different backgrounds, and actually kind of use the computer to mold their minds together into one joint product.
The ultimate goal, in a sense, of what we're trying to do with our facility is look at to what degree you can actually generate a collective intelligence for various types of projects and applications.
By collective intelligence, what we mean is the ability of a group of people to produce a product or a decision that is better than any one of them could do alone, so that the collective product is more outstanding, of better quality than any individual could have created.
And so what begins as a technological twist to CB chatter takes on new implications for these new times.
For people who are naturally shy and, wouldn't talk to someone face to face, somehow it's easier to express yourself by typing words on a keyboard and not having to worry. You can take a little time to phrase what you want to say. You can strike back over your errors and edit it and send it out all neat and pretty instead of worrying, well, did I comb my hair this morning? And,
You don't have a first impression of them other than what you see typed on your screen. Okay? There's no prejudice at all there.
And it's really interesting to see serious conversations where you know that this person's 14 and doesn't realize he's talking to Dr. Mark Chartrand, who is director of Hayden Planetarium, and the two of them are speaking as equals. You don't know which one's the 14-year-old and which one's the 55-year-old PhD. All you can judge by is the quality of what they communicate.
In the end, this new form of communication seems as much based on democracy as technology, and networks of that sort really are needed.
So now there's something more for shy people than just powder milk biscuits. My son contacted a computer bulletin board in Los Angeles, filled out a questionnaire, found that he matched someone called Liz, 76%. Unfortunately, Liz never picks up her electronic mail. Well, computers can aid the handicapped as well as the lovelorn. My father, the late Wendell Johnson, was a stutterer who spent his life researching and working with the speech handicapped. Today, computers can read books and speak them to the blind. They can listen to speech and write it out for the deaf. And they can help the physically handicapped as well. Here's Gary Prope's report.
Years ago, Margaret Frommer was unable to move. She's a quadriplegic, disabled by polio. She can't use her arms or legs. Today, she performs numerous jobs at the Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago. Margaret uses technology to guide her wheelchair and to operate office equipment.
Orthopedics engineering. Just a moment, I'll see if Mr. Baylor's here. Gary, you had the call on 6-0. As the technology became introduced into my life, I started getting more mobility, becoming more productive, more independent. All these great ideas I had stirred up in me, I was able to use them and bring them out to benefit other people. And the contrast in lifestyle is really different. One of a life of dependence to one of great independence.
The technology Margaret uses is called Puff and Sip. It involves a tube and air switches. When Margaret pushes or pulls air through the tube, electronic sensors give instructions to her computer. A series of air movements will manipulate a code in the computer program. That way, Margaret can answer the phone and start a tape recorder.
375-617-732-5362, and that's Dr. Sludge in Boston. All right, thank you very much. Bye.
Margaret can puff and move letters across the page of her computer screen. She can type at the rate of 10 words per minute. When the page is complete, a sequence of airflow sends the message to a printer. The typing process is a bit slow, but the rest of the job is performed in a smooth fashion.
Well, they wouldn't have to know I was disabled, no. Because on the phone they can't see anything, and I'm handling the calls very smoothly. And I'm taking the information down. I'm also sending out correspondence, which is very, very nice. It's well organized and put together and sent out. There's no reason if somebody didn't meet me that they would know I was disabled unless I let them know.
Margaret is pleased with her ability to work as a receptionist, but that's just a small part of what she contributes. She's also a lobbyist. She has testified before Congress on funding for equipment, research, and development. Margaret goes to law school and teaches at Northwestern University. She's also a consumer's advocate supporting high tech for the handicapped. Unlike Margaret, many disabled people are unable to be productive. The technology she uses has a price tag of thousands of dollars. People on Social Security benefits can't afford that. Margaret is trying to pull more money out of Washington so others can benefit from high tech.
The point is that nationwide we are putting about $8.5 million into this kind of technology with, I think in rough numbers, if we're talking about physically disabled people, there might be anywhere from 10 to 15 million. Well, that's not very much of a dollar spent per person.
Margaret believes new technology will eventually move disabled people out of hospitals and into the workplace. When that happens, the government will not have to pay as much out in benefits, and those new workers will be paying taxes into the Treasury. How soon that happens will depend on what kind of congressional support High Tech for the Handicapped receives.
Well, I think in anything in our society, it's a matter of priorities. You know, a lot of things should be priorities that aren't. I don't think enough people think that people with disability are important enough, and we like to sometimes hide these challenges. And people with severe disabilities are challenges. Hide our challenges away in the corner.
How much are we willing to spend for this new technology for the handicapped, or for our children or ourselves? Even the sky's no limit to what we spend on electronics for defense. That's the most expensive video game in town. You know, there are enough computers in one weapon system. Give one to every poor kid in this country. Will we do it? Well, I doubt it. You know, whether you're walking the corridors of your holiday shopping mall or the corridors of Congress, the economics of electronics are always with you. So take a break, go watch a sunset. Then join me again next week for another look at these new tech times.
The New Tech Times has been brought to you through a grant from Wausau Insurance Companies. Times change. Wausau works.